Okay, so it's the 18th of February 2023 and there's an amazing vibe today. Everyone's up in Oxford and they're all protesting with the 15-minute cities and all these neighbourhoods being blocked off and stuff like that. And myself and Simone are meanwhile over at the very first meeting of the Matrix Freedom Victim Support Group. For those of you who are not aware, Matrix Freedom burst onto the scene in, I think it was 2021, but prior to that, the founder of Matrix Freedom, a guy called Ian Stamp, had actually launched a platform called Mortgage Free, where he was claiming to write off mortgages, albeit the fact that actually he's not had any success in doing so. But that didn't stop him from taking up to £3,500 from his unsuspecting victims through the Mortgage Free platform. Of course, when that all turned into Matrix Freedom, he'd upped the price, I think it was, to around £4,000. And yet, to date, in 2023, he's had no results whatsoever. What's actually happening with the Matrix Freedom Victim Support Group is that people are coming together in order to take action against Matrix Freedom. You know, I've got Simone Marshall with me here. Simone used to work for Matrix Freedom. In fact, I think you spent, what, 3 months there, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just going to take the opportunity to find out a little bit more about Simone, who now runs a platform called Empower the People. And we're going to try to delve into the background with regards to Matrix Freedom and see if we can try to understand what's really kind of going on there. How on earth did you end up working for Ian Stamp?
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously for my sins. Okay, so backstory on me. I was working in the city up until late 2020. I was an investment surveyor working for fund managers. I've worked client side and consultancy side, you know, looking at brokering deals, negotiating to get maximised portfolios for investors. You know, that's probably a basic explanation of what I did. I woke up early 2020. That propelled me into a course of action of challenging the status quo, challenging the government, what was going on.
This was about COVID, wasn't it?
Correct, yeah. But very early on in my awakening journey, I connected to someone called David Murphy, who I think you're aware of, and other people in the movement, and we created something called Event 202, and we started marching on the streets and gathering people down to march in London to raise awareness and to try and take some form of action that would prevent the overreach of government at the time. And early on, I connected to some really good people and started to develop a concept which was an educational platform that would not only re-educate us and to get us all onto a similar level of consciousness in terms of and where we need to go and where we're heading as a community and as people, but to effect change in our own, not only on an individual level but at scale, you know, in terms of releasing ourselves from this slavery system that we all are so enveloped within.
Yeah.
And part of that journey ended up working for Matrix Freedom. So in 2021, I was running something called Lawful Observers with a guy called Dave Eden, 30 years in the police, and we were teaching men and women about their rights and about the powers of the police and your own powers, because we were seeing over and over again lots of people being hurt by the establishment and the authorities that be. And I actually was delivering a presentation on another channel with Roger Hayes. Do you know Roger Hayes?
I know Roger, yeah.
Okay, so Roger Hayes and myself was on a platform delivering a presentation about certain elements of legal, lawful, you know, and the banking system. And after that presentation, it was about 2 hours, 2.5 hours on it. And after that presentation, I got an email. And the email came to my Lawful Observer's email address, and it was from Mr. Ian Stamp.
Okay, so when was this? When was this roughly?
This was around May 2021.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And as I said, I was beginning to develop my own concept, which was an educational platform. I'd already bought the domain, I'd already done certain presentation and gathered people together and was building it as we was, as I was in this time period.
That was Empower the People, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I bought Empower the People domain in the January 21.
Yeah.
And May 21, I was contacted by Ian, who had been listening to one of my educational talks, and he offered me to work with him. He said he's got something of huge benefit that could benefit us both, and would I like to come on board and see what he's up to and what he's doing. Now, of course, at that stage, it was very early on, all that was an email from somebody, and I'm very open to exploring working opportunities to either equip, inspire, to encourage, to multiply what we're doing, because we're in a massive war here, as you know. You've been doing it for 15, 16 years. A lot of us are only just awakening up now, which means that we've got to catch up pretty quickly, right? But he reached out to me, saying that there was some mutual benefit to us working together. I decided to give it a go and explore what he was talking about, and that's when he started to explain matrix freedom to me. And I think I had a phone conversation with him. I think he was on the phone for about 2 hours. He did most of the talking, and I hardly spoke. But then at the end of the call, he felt that it was something he wanted to explore further, and he invited me to lunch.
Okay.
And he said he lived in Portsmouth. I live in Godalming, which is not far from Portsmouth, and he invited me to have lunch in Guildford, which is the next town up.
Okay.
But he said that he wanted to invite a guy called Kevin Stanford, who he worked with.
Yep.
And that's who I then met for lunch in July. So this was I think it was late June, early July.
Yep.
I'd gone to lunch with them both, and that's where he was telling me more about Matrix Freedom, and Kevin was explaining his involvement and what they were achieving, etc. And it sounded, on the surface, on the face of it, it sounded great. Here was somebody who was a year and a half or so ahead of what I had been trying to pull together with Empower the People. It sounded very similar, an educational platform that helps you to self-facilitate or facilitate services that can help lead to freedom. It's not even just a monetary sense, it's a freedom from the mental slavery. And so it sounded all good, and he had offices and he had a team, and he already had the systems developed, and he already had customers and clients who were going through this process. Kevin had been going through a similar process with his private law administration process with his team behind the scenes, and he was raving about it. But there was something that didn't quite sit with me with Ian. And this was the first time I was meeting him, and I just didn't get a great vibe. Kevin seemed lovely, a bit dim, but he seemed lovely. But Ian, and he was talking to me on a big corporate type language and level, and to me, coming from that, knowing that that's not our way forward, it was that as element as well. So there was something not quite right in Ian's demeanour, his energy that was quite a little bit off, but there was also his language and use of the way he spoke about matrix freedom, which was this, we're a corporate entity, we're going up against the banks, and we're going to become the biggest this, that and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And to me, we don't need corporate, we need community. By this point, my mindset is we need community, we need to support each other, not in a corporate client capacity. It can't work that way. So So anyway, after that meeting, he invited me to work for Matrix Room. He offered for me to work there, and I politely declined. And I just said, look, I don't think it's right for me. It's too corporate, and that's not my direction right now. That's where I've come from, and I don't believe in that structure. And so what he did is then he proceeded to task Kevin with messaging me through Telegram multiple and getting warm and friendly with me to try and bring me in.
So in other words, he didn't take no for an answer. Something I know all about with Ian Stamp. He didn't take no for an answer.
No.
Okay. So what kind of happened next then? So you got Kevin Stanford's emailing you multiple times through, or sorry, messaging you through Telegram. I've got to get my phraseology right here, with Telegram and emails. So he's messaging you through Telegram. And so what happened next?
Yeah, so he was messaging me through Telegram, telling me about his wife and his children, getting really familiar with me. And then he invited me to dinner at his house to meet his wife.
It's Kevin.
And this is Kevin,
yeah.
Inviting me to his house, which is in Kent.
Yeah.
Massive plot of land and big house, because he's from, he did well for himself under the Karen Millen brand. And
was it him that did well for himself, or was it his wife that did well?
It was his wife, but they were in partnership together.
He tagged along.
Yeah.
I was just going by the Dim comment earlier. So he kind of tagged along
Well,
with Mr. Dim.
Yeah, he obviously had some influence in the business, but he's not a business savvy chap. He's
Swept up.
Yeah, yeah, it's circumstantial, isn't it?
I'm joking, Kevin. I'm sure you had some input. Yeah, so go on then.
Anyway, he was messaging me prolifically on Telegram. I've still got all the messages, so I can prove that if necessary.
Yeah.
Anyway, he invited me to his dinner at one weekend with him and his wife, and he said Ian would be there as well.
Right.
And I agreed to go and have some dinner. But a couple of days before, I get another message, and it's, why don't you stay? And so it became from this dinner into, why don't you come for the weekend and make a couple of days and blah blah blah.
So you think Ian wanted to spend the weekend with you then?
Well, apparently so. But get this, you're going to hear something hilarious, okay? And I know you're going to love this.
Right, okay, go on then. So what, this was about a Friday night, a Saturday night?
This was Saturday, so I went down on the Saturday and I stayed over.
Yeah.
And we had dinner, and it was me, Kevin, his wife, his two little daughters were there. They've got an older son who was in and out, and Ian was there. And so that was it. Predominantly it was me, Kevin, his wife, and Ian. Mm-hmm. And they cooked a meal, and we had dinner, and this was on a Saturday, and we had some things to drink. And at one point, this is funny. This is going to be funny. At one point, I went out into the garden, and I was sitting on the bench, and the sun was going down. In fact, it was getting quite dark, and Ian followed me out about 5 minutes later.
Okay.
And he came and sat next to me on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And he started talking to me, and in a way that was kind of like, not wishy-washy, but like kind of almost airy. Like he was trying to impress me with a deeper, like he was deep,
Oh, okay, right.
Like he was trying to talk deep, on a deep level.
Attempting to talk deep. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what he did, I was sitting there and he said, give me your hand.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, wait on a minute, he's talking to me on a level like this. He invited me here, they've got me here, they've asked me to stay here.
You're trying it on.
Is this a setup? And anyway, I put my hand out.
Yeah.
And he grabs my hand.
Yeah.
And he brings it to his chest.
Right.
And then he just sits there like this.
Oh, I must admit, I did wonder where you said he was going to put your hand. But...
Well, this is what he was doing. So he was putting his hand, I'm sorry, I mean, I know that, but
yeah,
he was putting his hand on his chest, and he literally held it there.
I'm not moaning.
And I'm sat there, actually sat forward because I'm a little bit unnerved,
Yeah.
right? This is a man,
Yeah.
he's I'm in the garden now on my own with him.
A strange man. Yeah.
A strange man who I hardly know. He's talking deep. He then he's got his eyes closed and he's breathing deep. And then the next minute he starts to choke. So he starts going, and he starts like really coughing and like, and he falls on the floor.
Right. Do you think?
And literally he's just on the floor on his hands and knees and he's coughing. Now, what he doesn't know is that, I'm a prayerful woman, okay? And when he came to sit next to me, I was actually praying, right? Because I found it a very strange and odd thing, and he was placing my hand onto his heart.
Yeah.
Now, I'm quite scriptural in terms of my understanding, my faith and my belief, and I believe that we have power of healing in our hands, okay?
Yeah.
Because that's what the scripture says, and that we all have this ability to heal when we lay on our hands on people. Anyway, he laid my hand upon his heart, and don't forget, I had been conversing with Ian now, and I'd gone to lunch with him, and I could see that really there was a root of vengeance there, okay? That when he was talking about matrix freedom and what he was trying to achieve, it wasn't for the good of the people, okay? It was for the good of Ian, to get one over on the banks.
Yeah.
So from his pit, from that place, was where matrix freedom was manifesting. It was from a place of vengeance and spite and wanting to get back at the banks. Not about truly freeing people and people from enslavement. It was his ego, right, that was driving this. So when he did that, I was praying for him. And he doesn't know that, right? But I was praying for him. He will now, if he sees this video, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, at that moment, as I say, he fell on the floor and he started coughing up, and it was like demonic, all right? It was like a demonic, like almost like through my prayers, it was like something was now coming out of him.
Something you see on a film, like an exorcism.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, pray more, right? So I'm like praying in tongues over him. He doesn't know it. I'm kind of like in the spirit praying over him, thinking, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? I'm killing this man. He's like, something's going on and I'm here on my own. So he's coughing and he's on the floor and he's on his hands and knees. In the end, he doesn't get up, okay? He does not get up. In the end, I got so worried, I went into the house to grab Kevin. In the meantime, Ian somehow managed to get his way all the way over to the grass, to the garden. We're on concrete on the patio sort of garden. It's a big house, right? It's a big patio. And when we come out, he's on the grass over there and he's being sick, but it's not like sick, okay? It's like bile and foam. Like he was foaming, like rabies almost, But the funniest thing was he was farting, it was coming out this end, it was coming out that end, and he was just, I think I've been poisoned, he was literally believing that the establishment are after him, and that he had been poisoned, and that was it, he was going to die. And I was literally going, oh my gosh, I've prayed and I've caused this because of the spiritual warfare that's going on over this man's life. And so I'm just like putting my hands on him, still kind of praying. We're now like 11:30 at night.
So how long's he been farting and
It's about 2 hours.
Was he actually... it was like, everything was coming out both ends.
Well, no, he wasn't displaying any diarrhea or anything like that. But he was farting, all right? It was noisy, it was noise out of this end and it was noise out of that end. And he couldn't get off the ground.
Do you think this is something that...
Don't, because me and Kevin were in hysterics. We were pissing ourselves. I even went and got Kevin's old dad's. Kevin had a
Zimmer frame.
A wheelchair. So I went and got the wheelchair to try and get him out of the garden into the house.
Do you think this is...
Right. No, it was embarrassing.
Do you think this was a technique that he's used to try to chat those up?
Well, it didn't work.
I can imagine it with Ian Stamp. This is like a kind of over-the-top technique to try and pull someone. So,
Well, it didn't work. But anyway, right. So it's now. I'm literally. He's out there. Me and Kevin have gone inside. He's a heavy lump. Right, that man is a big, heavy lump, and me and Kevin could not carry him. So we literally went and tried to get a wheelchair. We tried to get him in the wheelchair. We couldn't get him in the wheelchair. So in the end, I just went and got some covers, and I just covered him and left him out in the garden because it was now like late, and I was wanting to go to bed. So anyway, I went to bed, and in the morning, he'd finally managed somehow to make his way to his bedroom.
Like the Terminator.
But the next day, it was bizarre. You know, it was really bizarre. So anyway, I had that experience. After that experience, I thought, I don't think I want to work for Matrix Freedom.
Well, you don't know what he's going to do during the day, do you? I mean, you don't know where he's going to put your hands. You don't know whether he's going to go into some kind of convulsions. I mean, as someone that talks about dark energy, I mean, it looks like, you know, it looks like he's quite familiar with dark energy.
Oh,
perhaps having some kind of
when I look back,
exorcism or whatever.
That was dark energy. That was dark energy, and that's what I was sensing, you see.
Yeah.
And that's what was putting me off.
How many roads must a man walk down before they call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer